Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. Close to Prabhupada. So we are resuming our discussion on the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita from verse 6. Etanyapito karmani sangyam tattva phalani cha kartavyani me partha nishitam matamuttamam. All these activities should be performed without attachment or any expectation of result. They should be performed as a matter of duty, O son of Pratha. That is my final opinion. So, in the previous verse, Krishna had said that Yajna Dan Tapa should never be given up. Krishna now speaks about the consciousness in which these acts should be performed. So, he recommends that they should be performed without attachment or expectation of result. So, if you remember, in the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna had also walked us through the transition of first doing our duty, our prescribed duty, and then transitioning to the platform of detachment, Nishkam Karma. Here he is summarizing the same thing. So he says, Nishitam Matam Uttamam. So which means he said that this is my matam is opinion, nishitam means definitely, and uttamam means best. So this is definitely my best opinion. So when he says best opinion, it's contextually from what he has spoken so far, because later on Krishna will give his best opinion as bhakti. Also in a way, because this transitions to bhakti, this can also be considered to be a precursor of bhakti. So Krishna is recognizing it as his best opinion. So in the chapter 5, when Arjun had asked the difference between tyag and sannyas, Krishna had given a similar answer. Ekam sankyam cha yogam cha yah pashyanti so pashyanti. That he had said that there is no difference between uh, uh, sankyam and and yogam, because one gets the same results. So Prabhupada says that everything that leads to Krishna consciousness must be encouraged. Right? And that's why we see Krishna's strong mood of encouragement over here. Next verse, verse 7. Niyatasya tu sannyasa karmano nupapapyate mohatasya parityagas tamasa parikirtaha. Prescribed duties should never be renounced. If one gives the prescribed duties because of illusion, such renunciation is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So one thing that we'll notice in this verse, that in the first line Krishna says, Niyatastu sannyasa. So he is referring to sannyas. And then in the uh, third line, he says, Mohatasya parityagas. There he is speaking about tyag. But he's using these two words synonymously. So, firstly, by explicitly stating that sannyas is the same as tyag, we see now Krishna is also implicitly stating the same thing by using them synonymously. So, in 3 verses from 7 to 9, Krishna will answer about the 3 kinds of renunciation. So, as per the scriptures, there are various kinds of karmas. So, there is nitya karma. So, these are daily activities like Sandhya Vandanam that should never be given away. There is naimitic karmas, which are also prescribed activities but which are occasional, like celebration of festivals, like the Pancha Mahayagya. Right? So, Pancha Mahayagya is the offering to the Brahmanas by chanting of the Vedas, offering to the Brahman by the chanting of the Vedas, offering to the Devas by Archana, offering to the Pitras by Tarpan, and offering to the guests by food, and offering to the animals by food. So these are done on special occasions. So uh, Nitya and Naimitic karmas should never be given up. Right? They are prescribed duties. The third is Kama karma, which is sense gratification. These are also given in the scriptures, and these are meant for fulfilling one's desires, like to get more wealth, have a son, um, grow in fame, etc. So, in our mind, we should make this distinction clear that in the next set of verses, or in this whole topic, Krishna is going to make a distinction between Nitya karma and Kamya karma. Right? So, right now, what he is saying that Nitya karma, and like I said, Nitya can also include Naimitic. We'll call them both Nitya. So, Nitya karma should never be given up. Right? So, Krishna is continuing to present this as his final opinion that Tyag and Sannyas are the same. Okay. Next verse, verse 8. दुःखमित्येव यत्कर्म कायक्लेशभयात् त्यजेत् स कृत्वा राजसं त्यागं नैव त्यागफलं लभेत्. Anyone who gives the prescribed duties as troublesome or out of fear of bodily discomfort is said to have renounced in the mode of passion. Such action never leads to the elevation of renunciation. So the previous renunciation was in the mode of ignorance, where one rejects the prescribed duties simply thinking that that is what sannyas is all about. So they're ignorant about the real connotation of sannyas. This is ignorance in the mode of passion. So the mentality of such a person is that he looks upon his prescribed duties and considers them to be troublesome. So a married man may consider the burden of caring for the family as troublesome. A Brahman may consider being taking cold water baths in early morning to be troublesome. Uh, Different people have different prescribed duties, and they may perceive that there is some bodily discomfort in them, and then they will think to themselves that let me make progress following the scriptures. So they combine a right thing with a wrong thing. The desire is to make progress, but they're making it in the wrong way out of the wrong mentality. Right? So that is why this is considered to be in the mode of passion. And the result is Naivatyaga Phalam Labhe, that one does not get the result of the renunciation. Right? The result of the renunciation is steadiness in Gyan, that is Tyaga Phalam, steadiness in Atma Gyan, that one becomes well situated in one's own spiritual identity, and such a person will not achieve it. Next verse, verse 9. Karyamityeva yatkarma niyatam kriyate arjuna sangam tyaktva phalam chaiva satyaga satviko matah. O Arjun, when one performs a prescribed duty only because it ought to be done, and one renounces all material association and all attachment to the fruit, his renunciation is said to be in the mode of goodness. Right? So, this is what Krishna is recommending Arjun, that one should perform your prescribed duty, but without attachment to the act or the results of the act. And this is in the mode of goodness. The result of it is that one makes progress in Atma Gyan. Next verse. Verse 10. Na dveshati akushalam karma kushalenanusajjate tyage sattva samavishto medhavi chana samshaya. The intelligent announcer situated in the mood of goodness, neither hateful of inauspicious work nor attached to auspicious work, has no doubts about work. So, this is a further expansion on the qualities of a person who renounces in the mode of goodness. So, Krishna right away glorifies such a person. He says Medhavi. So, Medhavi means that such a person is intelligent, which means that he has the power of discrimination in terms of what to do, what not to do. What is the result of that Medhavi? Chinna Samshaya. That his doubts about how to practice renunciation has now been all removed. So what does he do in this mode? Nadveshati akushalam. So he does not dvesh or he does not hate the work which is so Prabhupada here translate as inauspicious. Contextually, what it means is work that is not pleasing. So, like I give the example of taking cold water baths in the morning, it is auspicious. That's why the scriptures recommend it, but it appears to be inauspicious because it gives pain. Or the flip side is auspicious works. So kushale nanu sujate. So for a grahastha, um, having sex with the wife may be pleasing, right? Uh, but they don't get excessively attached to it, right? So what does the intelligent announcer do? That he does not hate the work that causes pain, nor does he become excessively attached to the work that is pleasing to him, right? And in that mode, he performs all activities without any attachment to them. This is the mood of a person who practices tyag or sannyas in the mode of goodness. Verse 11. Nahi deha bhrata satyam tyaktum karmani asesatah yastu karma phala tyagi satyagitya bhidiyate. It is indeed impossible for an embodied being, to give up all activities. But he who renounces the fruits of action is called one who has truly renounced. So, this is a summation of what Krishna has said. Um, so, what one derives is that of all the kinds of tyag, so Krishna has made 2 points in the previous set of verses. First point he made is that tyag and sannyas are the same. And then, second, he said that tyag or sannyas should only be practiced in the mode of goodness. Right? So, and here he is summarizing it by giving the opposite understanding that an embodied being cannot give up actions. So, when Arjun was saying that I will give up my prescribed duties, his whether it was his nitya or naimitic karma, the duty of Kshatriya to fight whenever the occasion, as per dharma, requires it, uh, one should follow that, whether it is kaushalam or akaushalam, whether it is pleasing or displeasing. Right? And one may aspire to give up the activities, but Krishna says that it is impossible to give up such activities for the embodied soul. So, if you remember in the third chapter, verse 5, Krishna had said, Nahi kashchikshanam api jatu tishte karma kart, karyate hayavarsh karma sarva prakriti jayar gura. That nahi kashchikshanam api, that not even for a moment, jatu tishte karma kart, that an embodied soul can be a karma krit, can be without activities. Why? Karyate hayavarsh karma. That forced by the modes of material, nature. One is compelled to act. Sarva Prakritir Jair Guna. Right? Everybody who's embodied is forced to act. So in this verse, Krishna uses the word Nahi Thena Prata Sakhyam. So na means no, and he in Sanskrit means most certainly. So Krishna does not just say no, it's not possible. He says most certainly not. It is not possible for karma phala tagya tyagi. It's not possible for taktam karmani asesishta. Not possible to one up, to give up the activities. Instead, he says one should become karma phal tyagi. The person should perform the prescribed duties while renouncing the attachment to the activities. Next verse. Okay, verse 12. Anishtam ishtam ishram cha trividam karmana phalam bhavatya tyaginam pretya natu sannyasinam kvachet. For one who is not renounced the threefold fruits of actions, desirable, undesirable, and mixed, accrue after death. But those who are in the renounced order of life have no such results to suffer or enjoy. So, this is the last verse in the section of the 18th chapter that was summarizing the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. This is a summary verse that is summarizing what Krishna has spoken about the mentality of doing one's action. Right. So here he compares those who are renounced and those who are not renounced. So those who are not renounced, anishtam, ishtam, mishram cha. So undesirable, desirable, and mixed. So not renounced means that one is performing their activities attached to the results. Now, this does not mean that the person is performing sinful activities, right? This is still the person who is performing activities according to the scriptural injunctions, but is not renounced because he is attached to the karma and the phala. Right? So, the three possible results are desirable, undesirable, and mixed. So, desirable, and this is again contextually desirable, not as per Krishna's standard, that a person is performing pious activities with the desire to become rich, and he may get that activity. Undesirable is that the person is performing yajna for elevation to higher planets, but is sacrificing animals. So he is also contaminated with the sins of the sacrifice. And mixed is that the person sets out to perform desirable activities, but unknowingly also accrues undesirable results. So all these three, anishtam, ishtam, mishram cha, trividham karmana phalam, these three things will accrue. Now, the second two line contrastive with one who's renounced. Bhavate atyaganam pretya natu sanyasanam kvachit. So here again we see Krishna is using tyag and sannyas synonymously. So he says bhavatya atyaganam pretya. It's a person who has given up, who has uh, I'm sorry, bhavati atyaganam. Atyaganam means that a person who has not renounced. Right? So this is still talking about the person who accrues the anishtam, ishtam, vishramcha. Right? And in the fourth line, it says natu sannyasanam kvachit. But a person who follows sannyas, these things do not happen. They have nothing to enjoy or suffer. Right? So atyag, a person who does not give up the fruits of the action, and sannyas is the person who actually gives up the performance of the action. Krishna is using them synonymously because he's again implicitly making the same point that tyag performed with detachment to the activities is non-different from sannyas. So this section would be familiar to us because in the first 6 chapters, Krishna repeatedly makes this point. That he first introduces and makes the distinction between impious and pious work, and then obviously recommends pious work. In the pious category, Then Krishna talks about acting with attachment and detachment, and then he recommends that we do work in a mood of detachment. Right? And then Arjun, he wants his doubts to be cleared that what is the best form of detachment? Not doing the activities or not being attached to the fruits of the activities. And Krishna then from the third chapter onward clarifies this point that they are the same. But the tyag is, a karmafal tyag is better because by performing one's prescribed duties, one gets the protection that is offered in the scriptures. So from verse 13 onwards, Krishna will now summarize the last six chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, which deals with Gyan. Verse 13, Panchayetani mahabhavo karnani nibodhame sankhya kratante proktani siddhya sarva karmana. O my Riyam Arjun, according to the Vedanta, there are five causes for the accomplishment of all action. Now learn of these from me. So this verse also establishes a continuity between karma and Gyan. Right? In the first 12 verses, Krishna spoke about being renounced from the perspective of karma, which is karma phal tyag. Right? Now, Krishna is going to explain the same thing from the perspective of Gyan. So, he is going to analyze the causes of actions and establish, based on that analysis, what one should do and not do. So, this is the Sankhya that Krishna speaks in the last six chapters, which coincidentally Krishna will also speak six verses over here to summarize those six chapters. So, from verse 13 to 18, Krishna is actually summarizing chapters 13 to 18. Right? So, here he is talking about that according to the Vedanta. So, the Vedantas are the Vedanta Sutras. So, we see Krishna here that is referring to something that he has not written. Right, so he is referring to Vedanta Sutra written by Srila Vyasadeva. Right, so Krishna is glorifying the practitioners of Gyan, specifically Vyasadeva, saying according to the Vedanta there are five causes. Right, and now in the next set of verses he will talk about these five causes. Verse 18. Adhishthanam tatha karta karanam cha prathak vidam vividascha prathak cheshta devam chaivatra panchamam. The place of action, the body, the performer, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the super soul, these are the five factors of action. So Krishna is expanding on the previous verse where he spoke that every action has five factors. He is enumerating what are the five factors of action. So what is the anatomy of any action? It begins with the desire of the of the jiva. So that is karta. So it's the jiva that first initiates the action, right? And this may be more of a thought process. The jiva begins to think about an action that he would like to execute. Right? Then comes cheshta. So the cheshta is endeavor when the seed of desire matures from a thinking to a feeling and willing state. Right? So now there is cheshta. So now there is endeavor invested in the desire. So the jiva has now invested the various types of the pranas, his bodily airs, in the execution of the activities. Then comes karanam. So karanam is the senses. So the senses now begin to manipulate the gross body to execute the action. So in this way, the jiva, the which is karta, the endeavor, which is uh, the the cheshta, and the senses, they now are setting the stage for the action to be done. Then the fourth is adhishthana, body, in which the action actually happens. Right. So uh, before the body acts, it goes through these stages. Right. So we know it's said that any activity is broken up into thinking, feeling, willing, and doing. Right. So Krishna breaks it into karta, cheshta, karanam, and adhisthana. Adhishtanam is the actual doing part of it. And then now the fifth element Krishna talks about is the super soul. So the super soul is the one that is permitting and overseeing the action. So while the jiva is the immediate cause of an activity, the super soul is the ultimate cause of that activity. So Krishna is breaking down this to establish this rather complex aspect of accountability for action. Right. So over the previous 17 chapters, Krishna has introduced various factors that he holds accountable for activity. Right. At one point he says it's the jiva, another point he says it's the modes of material nature, another point he says that it's the Paramatma. Now he is bringing them all together and says that they are jointly responsible. So, in making this point, Krishna is doing two things. He's establishing accountability in the jiva, right? So, by saying that karta, that you are the person that initiates the action, right? After that, cheshta, karanam, uh, adhishthanam, these are all coming in the modes of material nature, right? Specifically cheshta and karanam, the endeavor and senses. These are in the modes of material nature. A body is gross; it's just lump of dead matter which executes. Right. So at one point, Krishna is saying that yes, the modes of material nature are doing activities, but under the influence of the jiva. So thereby he is vesting accountability in the jiva for the actions. But then he also wants to for the jiva to develop humility. That jiva does not become proud that I am aham karta aham bhogi, that I am the performer of all my actions, I am the enjoyer. So he says that ultimately everything is ordained by the Paramatma. So while the jiva is the immediate cause or the efficient cause of an activity, the super soul is the ultimate cause of the activity. And then we'll see how Krishna will also use these five factors to establish that there is no difference between karma and jnana. Next verse, verse 15. Shariravan manobhiryat karma prarabhate naraha nyayam ya vipritam va panchayate tasya hetuvah. Whatever right or wrong action the man performs by body, mind, or speech is caused by these five factors. So, this verse establishes the universality of the influence of these five factors on any actions. And so, one should not think that this is only meant for pious actions or impious actions or attached actions or detached actions. So, Krishna says that nyayam, that means right actions, which means according to the injunctions of the scriptures, or vipritam, that are opposite to the instruction of the scriptures, right? So right or wrong action, and actions are of three categories, right? He says that sharira, those that are performed by the body, vak by speech, and manobhi by mind. So, whatever right or wrong action one performs with the body, mind, or speech is caused by these factors, which is another way of saying that each and every action the jiva performs is caused by a confluence of these five factors. Verse 16. Tatraivam sati kartaram atmanam kevalam tu yah pashatyakrit buddhitvan nasa pashyati durmatihi. Therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the five factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. Right? So, why is Krishna talking about these five factors? This verse is explaining that that uh, those who are who have this kevalam mentality. So, kevalam is that only by my power I have performed these activities. Right? Krishna says that such people are vimudhas, that they are like asses. So, Krishna had referred to these people in the third chapter as Vimudhas. In the later on in the 16th chapter, he refers to them as demoniac people, saying they're aham karta, aham bhogi, ishvaro aham. So, uh, in this verse, he is quoting the Vedanta Sutra for authority, right? And he points out to the lack of intelligence of such foolish people. So the lack of intelligence goes both ways. So there are some people who think that they are the only doer, and so they deny the other factors. And there are some people who think that they're not the doer at all. They might say that all the activities are being enacted by the super soul, and I have nothing to do with it. Or they might say, what can I do? I'm a slave to my intrinsic nature, so I have no control of it. Right? So all these categories of people who do not see the activities are performed by the confluence of these five factors. Krishna is calling them that they are they are durmati. Different words he uses. He calls them vimudha in the third chapter. Right, he calls them demoniac in the 16th chapter. Here he's calling them durmati, that the intelligence is polluted. Next verse. Verse 17. Yasya nahankrito bhavo buddhiryasya na lipyate hatvapi soiman lokan nahanti na nibadhyate. One who is not motivated by false ego, whose intelligence is not entangled, though he kills men in this world, does not kill, nor is he bound by his actions. So the previous verse described the situation of one who does not know, right? Apashyam, that a fool who cannot see that there are five factors that are constituent of any action. This verse talks about a person who is wise, who can see. So, what is it that he is able to see? That the actions are a are a joint result of the confluence of various factors coming together. So, how is he able to see that? That his intelligence is not entangled. Right? So, by the uh, effort of Sankhya or Gyan, he is able to understand all these actions. Because of the absence of false ego, he is able to act on that understanding. And the result is that he is not bound by his actions. So Krishna uses a specific example that is relevant to Arjun. So he says, though he kills men in this world, he does not kill. So Arjun had in the first chapter said that he would be contaminated by the sins of killing his guru, his grandfather, father, friends, relatives. Now Krishna is saying that if you act in this mentality, you will not bound by you will not be bound by the action. Srila Prabhupada gives the example that when a soldier kills under the command of a superior officer, he is not subject to be judged. But if a soldier kills on his personal account, then he is certainly judged by the court of law. And he gives an example. So the superior officer in this case is Krishna or the Vedantas, and the soldier is the Jiva who is surrendering to the commands of the scriptures or Krishna. Next verse. Verse 18. Jnanam geyam parikyata trivida karma chodana karanam karma karteti trivida karma sangraha. Knowledge, the object of knowledge, and the knower are the three factors that motivate action. The senses, the work, and the doer are the three constituents of action. So, this is the concluding verse of the Sankhya part of the summation by Krishna that summarizes chapters 13 through 18. It's an important verse because if you notice that Krishna is actually equating the two processes that he explained. But in the first half of the verse, when he talks about uh, knowledge, object of knowledge, and knower, right? So he's talking about Jnanam, Geyam, and the knower is the Jiva or the Paramatma, but here it is the Jiva. So this is what Krishna had taught in the 13th chapter as the platform on which Sankhya is built. So he said these are the three factors that motivate action, right? And then he says the senses, the work, and the doer are the three constituents of action. So these are the three aspects of karma that Krishna had spoken in the first 6 chapters, right? So essentially what he is saying that when performed with proper consciousness, karma and jnana are the same. Or if you look at it another way, because they are mutable, he is saying that karma results in jnana and jnana results in karma. So this is the one of the key aspects of the Bhagavad-gita, which is the mutability of karma and jnana. Like when Krishna says that tyag and sannyas are the same, then he's talking about renouncing the fruits and renouncing the activities. Right? So renouncing the fruits is from the platform of karma, renouncing the activities are from the platform of jnana. So experientially we see that how karma and jnana built one on one another. That when a person uh, is explained how to do something, that is jnana, then he does something, that is karma. Based on that, he gets further realizations, which is jnana, based on which he further does karma. Right? So in this way, karma and jnana are constantly building into one another. And from a more technical perspective, the jnana that comes out of karma is called vigyan. That is, so one is knowledge and the other is experiential knowledge. So, so corresponding to the process of jnanam or knowing is the process of karanam or action. Then corresponding to gayam, that what is to be known, the object of knowledge is karmakarak, which is the object of karma or that which needs to be done. And gyata is the knower and kartrakarak is the agent of action. So when we establish the equivalence, then the knower becomes the agent of action. The process of knowledge reveals the action that needs to be done, and the object of knowledge talks about what is it that needs to be done. So, so by breaking it down into these three components and equating them, Krishna is essentially making the point that when performed on with the proper consciousness, karma and jnana are the same. So if somebody is saying that I will renounce all activities, but I will only focus on the study of the scriptures and make advancements in knowledge. Krishna is saying that you can do the same by the performance of karma, and in fact it is better because karma also gives protection to your senses. From a spiritual context, the process of knowledge means to act with an understanding of Atma, that I am a soul that is different from the body. Right? So that is Gyan. Then Gayam is the understanding of the soul. Right? And the shelter of such the knowledge is the Gyani, the Parikyata. Right? So that so so that is how Krishna is now bringing everything together. That karma is the same as Gyan, Tyag is the same as Sannyas. What is the unifying factor over here? That one acts according to the injunctions of the scriptures, but with detachment. Right? So this is the end of Krishna's analysis of Gyan, or how to become free from the reactions of an activity from the perspective of Gyan. Now Krishna is going to explain the result of this understanding. And so far, Krishna is not present there, even though he speaks about the super soul as an expansion, which is Krishna, but Krishna himself as Swam Bhagwan is not present. Right now, in the next section, Krishna will introduce the topic of bhakti, and that we will cover in our next discussion. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.